Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to solve this Leetcode question which is grumpy bookstore owner. So let's dive into the question. In this question there is a bookstore owner that has a store open for n minutes. Every minute some number of customers enter the store. You are given an integer array customers of length n where customers of I is the number of customers that enter the store at the start of ith minute and all those customers leave after the end of that minute. Okay. Now on some minutes the bookstore owner is grumpy. You are given a binary array grumpy where grumpy of I is 1 if the bookstore owner is grumpy during the ith minute and is 0 otherwise. When the bookstore owner is grumpy, the customers of that minute are not satisfied, otherwise they are satisfied. The bookstore owner knows a secret technique to keep themselves not grumpy for some consecutive minutes, but can only use it once. Return the maximum number of customers that can be satisfied throughout the day. So basically in this question what we are given is that we have a bookstore owner. So basically we have a bookstore owner in this question and for he has a shop. This is his shop. Let's say this is his shop. So at every minute, some number of customers will visit this bookstore, right? So this is the 0th minute, this is the first minute, this is the second minute, this is the third minute, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we are given an customers array where where each and every element represents the number of customers that are visiting at that particular moment. So at 0th minute, one customer is visiting the store and at first minute there are no customers and at second minute one customer and at third minute there are two customers visiting the store, right? So this is about this array. And grumpy means like rude, I might say, rude or harsh. So this the owner of this store, he's so like he sometimes becomes rude. He's not always rude, and he's not always cool. You know when 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 the element is 0, it means that he is cool. When it is 1, it means that he is grumpy in the sense I said rude or harsh, right? Harsh towards the customers. Now now the thing is we have a superpower. Basically we have a superpower that by using this superpower, what we can do is we can make the owner cool for the minutes, for these many minutes. I mean that I have a superpower. By using this superpower, what I can do is I can make the owner cool for a particular time. You know what I mean? Like here the number of minutes is 3. So I can make the owner cool for the first 3 minutes or these 3 minutes or these 3 minutes. I can only use this superpower only once, but we can only use it once, right? So what we need to do is when the customer is arriving, if the owner is grumpy, that means the customer is not satisfied, right? And when the owner is not grumpy and when the customer and if the customer arrives at that point of time, then he is satisfied. So basically we just have two things. There is owner. If he is grumpy or rude, then the customer is not satisfied. If he is cool with the customers, then the customer is satisfied. Now what we need to do is we have the superpower to make the owner cool for a particular amount of time. So we need to use this superpower optimally so that we can satisfy most number of customers, right? So using this, if you observe carefully, uh, if we make the owner cool in these 3 minutes, in the last 3 minutes, then we can satisfy, we can get this output. That means that, I'm sorry, before that, let's look at this example. Here here at 0th minute, one customer is coming. At this point of time, the owner is not grumpy, so this customer is satisfied, right? And at this point of time, there is no customer, but the owner is grumpy. Since there is no customer, there is no one who is unsatisfied, right? So we don't take into consideration. Now at this point of time, the owner is not grumpy and the customer is satisfied, right? The customer is satisfied. But at this moment, if you observe carefully, at this moment, the owner is grumpy and two customers arrive. Now, when the owner is grumpy, the customers won't be satisfied, right? Won't be satisfied. Now, again, in the next moment, one customer arrived and the owner is not grumpy. So this guy is satisfied. And and in the next moment, one customer is arrived and the owner is also grumpy. So he's not satisfied, right? He's not satisfied. And in the next moment also, the seven customers arrive at the same moment, and the owner is not grumpy. So these seven people are also satisfied. And at the last moment, five customers arrive, but the owner is grumpy. So these five customers are not satisfied. So so in this example, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 7. So only 10 customers are satisfied. 1 plus 2 plus 5. I'm sorry, 1 plus 1 plus 5. And 7 customers are unsatisfied, right? So what we can do is we can use this superpower to make the owner cool, right? So if you observe carefully, if I make the owner cool in these minutes, in these last 3 minutes, then all this will become 0. 0, 0 and 0. This will become 0, 0, and this will also become 0. So he's not grumpy at this point of time, right? So if we do the same thing again, then this customer will be satisfied. This customer, there are not, there is no customer, right? So we don't care about them. This customer is also satisfied. These two customers are not satisfied. This customer is satisfied. This one is also satisfied since this is 0, and since this is also 0, these 7 are also satisfied. Since the last one is also 0, these 5 are also satisfied. So if we use our magical power in the last 3 minutes, then we'll be having 5 plus 7, which will be 12 plus 1, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we're able to satisfy 16 customers, which is nothing but our answer, right? So this is basically the question, basically. So let's try to solve this question. Let's dive before that, let's look at the constraints. If you look at the constraints, the length of the array, the customers and the grumpy array is 1000, but the number of minutes can be 2 into 10 power 4, and grumpy of I can either be 0 or 1, right? So these are our constraints. I think we can do an order of n square solution on this. It might work, but we'll also look at an efficient solution. So so let's try to think of a brute force solution, which might not be efficient, but the solution uh, can the solution can solve the, I'm sorry, the solution can run, but it might not be efficient. Alright. So what I'll do is I'll check each and every possibility in my brute force solution. Since the number of minutes is 3, what I'll do is I'll make the owner cool in the first 3 minutes, and then the second on these 3 minutes, and then 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 these 3 minutes. And at every situation, I'll just go through the customers array and see whether they're satisfied or not. So let's suppose if I make the owner cool in these first 3 minutes, let's say the number of customers I satisfied is X, and if I make the owner cool in the next 3 minutes, let's say my answer is Y, and the next answer is Z, next answer is A, next answer is B, next answer is C. I'll just take the maximum of these, right? So initially I'm satisfying X number of customers, then Y number of customers, then Z number of customers. So basically I'll take the maximum of these, right? So what I'm doing is that so what I'm doing is for for every element, for initially I'll just traverse these three, and I'll make these values as I'll just take another array which is as cool array, I mean cool array. Then in this cool array I'll make the first three elements as 0, and then I'll copy all the rest of the elements as it is 0 1 1 0 1, and then I'll check how many customers is this cool array satisfying, right? So the first answer will be X. Then what I'll do is I'll create another array by making the owner cool in the next 3 minutes, which will be 0 0, and this will also become 0, and I'll again check whether how many customers are getting satisfied, right? So the answer will be Y. So basically you're getting the point, right? So what is the time complexity means? So we'll be going, let's say the length of the array is n, and we'll be going n minus minutes plus one number of times. We will be creating this array and we'll be checking this one, right? So the time complexity will be n minus minutes plus 1 into n, right? We'll be traversing this array for each and every iteration of this one, right? So this is the time complexity, and the space complexity is order of n, right? For is it order of n or order of n square? Yeah, at a particular moment we're using one array, right? So it will be order of n, the space complexity. So this is the brute force solution, and let's try to think of a efficient solution. So let's try to understand what we are doing wrong in this approach so that we can go through the efficient solution. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm just I'm just checking that initially I'm making these 3 minutes as you know in these initial 3 minutes I'm making the owner not grumpy, right? So and then what I'm doing is I'm going back again, and I'm again doing these 3 minutes as no as cool, right? So instead of going back and coming and doing the same thing, instead what I'm going to do is that I'm going to I'm going to remove this 0, and I'm going to add 0 here, right? And then in the next step, instead of going back and forth, I'll just remove the 0 from the back, and I'll just increase the 0 from the front. That's it. So this is the efficient approach that we are going to do, right? So now let's look at the efficient approach, guys. So in this efficient approach, initially what I'm going to do is that I'll check. So I have a superpower of using these 3 minutes, right? So before using the superpower, I'll check how many customers am I satisfying. So in this example, without using the superpower, if I go through the array, I'll be satisfying 10 customers initially. So now what I'm going to do is I'll use my superpower. Initially, I'll use my superpower on these first 3 minutes, right? Now I'll check how many additional customers am I satisfying. How many additional customers means when the owner is grumpy and there are positive number of customers, right? So initially when the owner is grumpy and there are customers, I'm not satisfying them, right? The owner is not talking to those customers and those customers are not satisfied, right? Now when I'm using the superpower, the owner will become cool. That means he's not grumpy. So at that point of time, if there is a customer coming, then he will be satisfied, right? So basically I'll check for every window, I'll check how many more customers am I satisfying, right? So basically let's go through this, and at the end what I'm going to do is for every window I'm going to take the maximum number of customers I'm satisfying, and I'll add it to the initial customers, right? So that will be the answer. So initially I'll be making the owner cool in these first 3 minutes. So how many additional customers am I satisfying? Initially the owner is not grumpy, so this customer is already satisfied. This customer is also already satisfied. So at this point the owner became not grumpy. That means he became cool, but there is no additional customer that came, right? So at this window we're satisfying zero more customers, right? And then I'll go to the next window, and I'll make these three as zeros, 0 and 0. So at this point of time, no customers are coming, so I'm not satisfying anyone, right? 10 plus, so I'm not satisfying anyone. So at this point of time the owner is already cool, so he has already satisfied this customer, so I'm not going to count it. At this point of time, which is fourth one, at this point of time initially the owner is grumpy and he hasn't satisfied these customers, but by using this superpower i'm I'm satisfying this customer, right? So right now I'm satisfying two customers in this window, right? In the second window I'm satisfying two customers, and let's look at the third window, which will be this one, right? Which will be these two. So so this will be become 0. So we are not going to consider these zeros because these customers are already satisfied, right? So I'm going to look at this one, which is fourth one, this one, right? So this customer is already satisfied, right? I'm sorry, this customer is satisfied right now, right? So initially ten of them are satisfied, and now two two customers are satisfied, right? And let's move to next one. The next one will be these three, and here these will be these three. So this customer is already satisfied, so I'm not going to consider him. So here the owner has become not grumpy, so I'm going to satisfy these two, and I'm also satisfying this customer, right? So I'm satisfying three customers, so it will be 10 plus 3, right? And let's move to the next window, which will be 0 1 0. It will be 1 1 7, right? So these two customers are already satisfied, right? At this moment. Now I'm only going to satisfy this middle customer. So I'm only satisfying one more customer, right? In this window, it will be 10 plus 1. So at the end, I'm going to move to the last 3 minutes. In this last 3 minutes, I have already satisfied the middle customers, so I'm not going to consider this. So I'm satisfying this customer, which is 1. I'm also satisfying the last 5 customers. So it will be 5. 1 plus 5 will be 6. So I have already satisfied 10 customers, plus I'm satisfying 6 more customers, right? So I'm just going to take the maximum of all these, which will be 16, right? So that is our answer. So now let's look at the time and space complexity before dive into the code. So what I'm going to do is what I have already did is that I'm not doing something like initially I'm traversing through through these three values, and then I'm again coming back and traversing these three values. Instead of doing that, what I'm doing is that I'm just adding this element into my window, and I'm just removing this element from my window. So it will become it will become like this, right? Now again from here I'm going to add this element into my window, and I'm going to remove this element from my window. So let's look at how am I calculating this. So initially when the when the owner is not grumpy, I'm not going to consider it, right? Because the that particular customer is already satisfied. Now when the owner is grumpy, those many customers are getting satisfied additionally, right? So I'll take a variable called additional. If the owner is grumpy, then I'm going to add these many customers to my additionally satisfied customers. So initially it will be 0. So I'm going to add 0 because I'm not satisfying any more customers, right? Now initially it is like this, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move this point to here. So what I'll do is I'll add these since the owner is grumpy at this point. So how many customers am I satisfying? I'm satisfying 0 plus 2. I'm satisfying two customers, and I'm going to remove these initial values, right? So when I'm removing the initial values, I can only remove those values if the owner is grumpy, right? I'm just adding the customers when the owner is grumpy, and I'm just removing the values when the owner is grumpy. Basically, I'm adding and removing only when the owner is grumpy, right? So in this way, we're going to solve this question. Now, so let's look at the code now. So initially, I'll be taking a initial satisfaction equals to 0. Now I'll just go through the array I less than customers dot length and I plus plus. Now what I'll do is if the if the owner is not grumpy, then the customer is satisfied, right? So I'll add this to the initial satisfaction. So these many customers are getting satisfied. And now what I'll do is I'll take a window satisfaction. How many people are getting satisfied in the particular window? So I'll take a low variable which starts at 0 and a high variable. These two variables basically represent my window, right? So when I'm at this window, this is my low and this is my high. So basically these two will be pointing to my lowest end and my highest end of my windows. So initially I'll be traversing the initial window, and then I'll just keep on adding one element and I'll reduce one element, right? That's it. Initially I'm going to create a window of size these many minutes, right? So my high will when my while my high is less than minutes, initially at the end high will be increased, right? If the grumpy of the owner is equal to 1, if the owner is grumpy, then we are already satisfying this customer, right? Plus equals to customer of high. I'm sorry, I kept I here. It should be high. And at the end, I'm just increasing the high. So after this loop, what will happen is that my low will be here and my high will be here, and my window satisfaction variable will contain number of customers I have satisfied, right? So how many customers in the initial window I have satisfied? 0. So my this variable will be holding 0. Now from this point I'll just add one element and I'll just remove one element. So this will go till my high is less than customers dot length. So I'm going to add one element, right? So I'm going to add this element which is pointed by high, right? HIGH high. So I'll only add this one when the owner is grumpy. When the owner is grumpy, then I'm going to add this to my window satisfaction plus equals to customers of high, right? Then I'll increase my high and I'll only add I'll only remove the low value when the owner is grumpy, right? So window satisfaction minus equals to customers of low. This is because this is because we're only satisfying the customers. We're only adding the customers when the owner is grumpy, right? So we should only remove those many customers only when the owner is grumpy. I don't know whether it is getting more confused or I'm just making it more complicated. I think it's a simple one, but I'm just making it more complicated. So basically, if you look at this one here initially, no, let's take this one, yeah, this one. So this one points to this one, right? So when I use my superpower at this point of time, I'm going to satisfy these two customers, right? But when I'm moving out of this range, I need to remove these two customers from my window, right? Because at this window, I'm not going to satisfy these two customers, right? So that is the reason I'm just removing the element when the owner is grumpy. So that is what I'm doing. When the owner is grumpy, that's when I'm removing the number of customers, and I'm going to do low plus plus. But initially int final no total customers satisfied equals to my initial satisfaction plus my window satisfaction, right? And at this point I'll just take the maximum of customers satisfied equals to mat.max of this one or this one, and at the end I'll just return and I'll just run it. So it is customers, and let's try to run this again. Yeah, it's running fine, guys. So basically we're using sliding window in this question to solve this. So I'm sorry guys, I think I have made this question more complex than it is. So yeah, thank you guys for watching.